Good evening. This is Debra V. Wilson. It is Tuesday, the 21st of January, 2020. The time is 2100 hours and 5 minutes, and that time zone is BST, and I'm in Bradford, West Yorkshire. This podcast is one of my stream of consciousness. Sometimes when I'm sitting in the moment and experiencing something, I think, oh, that would make a very good podcast. And then when I'm actually sitting and taping it, I think, what was I thinking? But in any case, I will carry on, press ahead. I go to several times a week. I attend Bradford Cathedral's evensong. I define at the moment as Muslim and Catholic, but that's in the process of changing. I'm exploring converting to Judaism, which is something I plan to do, the exploration of Judaism over a decade ago. So I'm revisiting that. But in any case, at the moment, well, I guess that's not even true at the moment how I conceptualize life. But anyway, those are the labels I'm using because it seems to be we're in a world of labels. Which brings me to, as I sat and listened to the music, the songs, the prayers, and I looked around the cathedral. It's a large cathedral. It's beautiful. If you get a chance to visit, it's Bradford Cathedral. People are very nice and welcoming. It's a safe space. The religion is reflective of the country from which it emerged. The cathedral itself is reflective of the country from which it emerged. So my belief about religion, because I am a person of faith, however, I tend to think that God is nature. And I think religion is feeding back to God, communicating to the energy that is the divine, the systems, the organization of life itself, which I believe is the divine God, the creator. I think religions are something that we as human beings construct to communicate to God how we are experiencing God, the creator, and ourselves as the created, and all of the creation that is around us. And so it always makes me think about religion and how we understand religion. I'm from Chicago. I was born in Chicago over 62 years ago. And Chicago is a city of a great many binaries, including around ethnicity and quote unquote race. When I was a child, we distilled race down to its finest detailed construct. You weren't just white, you were Irish, Irish American, German American, Italian American, Greek American, and black people weren't just black people, black Americans or African Americans, and then Jamaican Americans, Nigerian Americans. So we distilled and often segregated down to the, all of these constructs. I'm still on the same topic. I haven't lost my way. Not yet. So it makes me think about religion and the state and the way in which they exist or coexist. And I'm a believer in a separation of church and state. I think that's very important because of Chicago. And in Chicago, because we tend to segregate, I no longer live in the U.S. I am working on staying in the UK, and hopefully for personal reasons, not returning to the U.S., not to live, unfortunately. That's my reality. But in any case, I was raised Catholic. My father was Catholic. My mother was Muslim. And I remember when I lived in Chicago and still had my career in Chicago, there were people I knew, this Catholics, that spent every Sunday exploring a different expression of Catholicism. And people would say, I'm going to the Vietnamese Catholic Church. I'm going to a Black Catholic Church. I'm going to an Irish Catholic Church. I'm going to a Mexican Catholic Church. And although sometimes the binaries in Chicago, often, were quite crude, one of the things I always appreciated about Chicago is no matter how crude and debilitating and oppressive some of those binaries were, and they always gave voice to what they were, creations by humanity. And so within Chicago, there were myriad expressions, and still are, of Catholicism. And there's always been an awareness, since I was a child, that they were all valid expressions of Catholicism, but nevertheless, they were constructs. They were an understanding of the divine running through a prism of a sense of self, your belonging, when, where you practice your faith. And so I always look at religion, and for those of us who are people of faith, and how I connect and understand the divine. For me, I need a hyper analytical construct of the divine. I need to methodically explore my religiosity, and I need a God that is methodical and in all of the Creator's glory, which is why I believe God is the systems that govern the universe, that govern our bodies, that govern everything, because I am a systems person and I need God to be the ultimate organizer and maintainer of systems. In this country, there's a debate about divisions of church and state and religiosity, and what the state has a right to question. I think in a democracy like the UK, that we, with the lawmakers, we the people, have the right and the ability to make changes to laws. It's a good thing. Because I think the best way to run a society are laws that we all agree on. There's a consensus, the majority, the will of the people. And so I think that the laws trump our interpretation of religiosity. And where the state is oppressive and unfair and unthinking, I think we the people do and have a right to speak up. But overwhelmingly, I think the state rules. I have a right to believe what I believe in my heart. And as long as I'm law-abiding, I have a right to practice my faith. I have a right to convert and change religions. I have a right to embrace two religions simultaneously. It's none of the state's business, as long as I don't want to follow the law. So when I sit in Bradford Cathedral, I not only experience the religiosity, I experience religiosity and the understanding from some of a group of people who believe in the Creator, the divine, God, as I do, but how they construct that Creator and divine is different. And I sit sometimes when I'm in the cathedral, like I'm about to now, you know me with the tears, and I'm overwhelmed with the beauty of humanity to create. And I don't ever feel threatened by a different interpretation of the Creator, a different understanding, a different connection to the Creator. As long as it's law-abiding, you're respectful. Your journey is your journey. If your journey in general is your journey, but in the context I'm speaking now, your path to the Creator. So I'm constantly asking myself, how does the state understand religion? and the right to be religious, this state, this country. And when it comes to matters of national security, does the state truly understand and respect the law of the land, the state? And the people have a right to construct and believe as they do, but their actions. And where a construct of a religion, any religion, condones abuse of another, harm to self or other, I think the state has a right to step in. I very much value my religiosity. It's quite precious to me, but I understand it's just that. It's mine. And I understand it's influenced by a great many things. When I was born, where I was born, how I experienced life, how the people who guided me on a religious path experienced their respective lives. And then as an adult, how I made sense of that. And what worked for me, worked for me. And where things didn't, I did what ultimately did work for me. So, it's all connected, but this is sort of, again, stream of consciousness that I'm kind of working through. So the next thing I'm going to talk about very briefly, because I'm already over 11 minutes, is the PREVENT program. And I'm going to post some criticism of the PREVENT program. I like the idea that PREVENT is thought of as safeguarding. My belief and feeling is that current child protection laws around drinking, around all manner of things, any child protection laws should include extreme thoughts. Extreme thoughts because a child has been groomed to do anything, I think should all be under the same umbrella. I think that children who are referred to PREVENT would be best referred to the same programs children are referred to if they've been harmed. Underage minors have been harmed in other ways. I think I wish the PREVENT had a different name. But because I think ultimately it is about preventing terrorism. Ultimately, that's what it's about. But when it involves, specifically when it involves children, I think it's safeguarding for the children and the larger society as well. I have some questions about PREVENT and some concerns about PREVENT, but that it is going through some flux. I think that's why it needs oversight. I think that can be normal in tools utilized by the state or anyone. If it isn't working, if it's too arduous on the people, then it needs to be fixed and it needs to be adjusted. I think the concern is, and I think it's a valid concern because PREVENT is so powerful. Anything the state does, it's a powerful tool. The state is like prescribed medication. So when you do it, whatever they do, you want to get it right the first time, and you want to have plenty of oversight. Like if you make analogous to getting a prescribed medication from your doctor, you do follow-up appointments to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. I look forward to a continued oversight of it, of the program, and how it's working and the ways it's working, and where appropriate communicating with we the people about changes and goals. And I think that's important. The country has a new home secretary. That's relatively old news at the moment. Pretty Patel. And there are some new counterterrorism laws going through that are being proposed that will, if they go through, will go into effect later this year. I think it's very important for people to learn as much about those laws and to understand them. I think this is an interesting time in the national security model because there's some flux going on. The model is changing, and we the people have a right to look and understand if those changes we think are good. And it's good that the state is letting us know in advance. We're participating in this, as is the case in a democracy, so that's a good thing. The other things that are happening is that the Director General of MI5, Sir Andrew Parker, and Sir Alex Younger. Andrew Parker is MI5, Alex Younger is MI6. So little sister, big sister, internal spying entity, external spying entity will both be stepping down this year. The time frame I read in the newspaper for Andrew Parker is April. I'm not certain if it's the same time frame for Sir Alex Younger. But in any case, I would think at this point they've already pretty clear about who they may have already made a decision. So I'm looking forward to seeing who the new persons will be at the helm for each of those agencies. It's a busy time, at least I feel, because of the research I do in national security. It's a busy time, I think. And anytime there's change, and particularly change in something so important like national security, it's always, I think, causes anxiety. If you're not a little anxious, you're not paying attention. So I'm going to post as much as possible. And before I close out this bit of a ramble, but it was actually cathartic for me. So that's the thing that social media in general lets you opine on everything, gives the mic metaphorically and literally to everyone. I've already posted it on Twitter. I hope Sir Andrew Parker stays visible, quote unquote, in the world of national security for this country. So I hope he shows up as a guest lecturer at a university, and I hope he goes into the House of Lords. He is relatively young. See, I'm mapping out his life. I did say I'm from Chicago today and every day, South Side of that today and every day. So he's still a relatively young man. He's not in his 60s yet. And so I'm mapping out his life. He has a lot of life ahead of him, and he has considerable experience in different realms of national security, and I would hate to see that lost. I used to hire people as one of my jobs. I worked human resources in Chicago, and so I have judged him to be a very valuable resource for the country, and I would hate to see us lose that. So that's it. Did a bit of a ramble tonight, and we'll probably do some more rambling as I'm preparing for school and postgraduate school, which is terribly exciting. In any case, this is Debra B. Wilson. I am in Bradford. Thank you.